All right, Patrick, thank you for joining me on the K Monkey Podcast Show. I've been a huge fan of yours ever since I've been seeing you on social media and then get to meeting you in person at a couple of conferences recently in Miami. It's always great to see you. And I've been following you, like I said, on social media, and you always give great advice and tips and tricks for those maybe not in the same arena as you. You know, you have over 100 property portfolio, but some maybe just starting off. You still give some good hints and tips in your videos about how to make it a little bit more approachable, how to make it a little bit more profitable. So I'd love for you on here and sharing some information about you. But for those who don't know about you, share who you are, what you do, and how you help all of us in the vacational industry.
Hi, I'm Patrick. As you mentioned, my background is very tech focused. I've been building companies since I was 14 years old. Sold my first business at 18. Got into vacation rentals through working at a company as a product manager. So tech role. The company was called Avance. Avance now is a big vacation rental management company. However, that was like the first inspiration for short-term rentals for me. And then from there, I bought five. Just quick story, just bought five using other people's money. First one I used my own money, and then I bought a management company, and then bought two more management companies and grew the management company. So currently at 100. And yeah, I teach. I have a book called The Wealthy Airbnb Superhost. I teach people about short-term rental investing, A to Z, how to get started with short-term rentals. And I also have, I do a lot of retreats. I did a conference for 3 years, 250 attendee conference. I have a community of people that are all 5+ units, and we help them scale and grow their management company. So yeah, I mean, I do it all. I enjoy it a lot, and I love the teaching part.
I had no idea that you were a tech background, and that's how you got
Mhm.
into the space. Did it help you? Did it help you in the fact that you were at a company that was larger scale that you could see, hey, this is possible, I could do it too? Or how did your tech background actually help you? Or was it didn't really help you, just the fact that it showed you this world?
Yeah, I mean, it did show me this world, so that's one thing. But my tech background is very much, I love building products. I built like augmented reality menu products that we got like into an accelerator, and in college, like we were on TV and all that. It was just a whole thing. So I was in the tech world. I was in the, hey, like I'm looking to build the product and scale it like that. So bootstrap it and or raise money. So I learned a lot about pitching people, about entrepreneurship, about building teams. I've been building teams since I was 14 too, so I always had employees. So when we have 40 now, like it's really not that difficult for me. It's just something second nature, being a leader, that kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, I think it really helped me in the short-term rental space because I was able, like as a product manager, you touch every side of the business, right? So I was working cross functionally across multiple departments at Avance and seeing how all these departments work together and seeing what problems occur with scale. And so that was like really interesting to see all of that at a scale of a company. And not only that, but a short-term rental business is really hard to grow it and really hard to sustain quality. So how do they do that at scale? Pretty much.
So when did you decide that, like, I'm gonna go, not maybe all in the beginning, but when did you decide, like, hey, I'm gonna buy my first property and then use OPM, other people's money, to acquire other properties? That's kind of quick. But you must have known that you could do it because you are kind of touching all these different things in the business. Was it quick, or is it just kind of an opportunity presented itself and you just took it?
Yeah, it was not quick. I had analysis paralysis. I think a lot of technical people are very they analyze things a little too much. So I've learned not to analyze things as much. But in the beginning, of course, like I was 23 or 24, 23. Yeah, I was 23, and COVID happened, and I lost three jobs in 1 year. So I got a job, and then I got fired, and I got a job, and I got fired. Sorry, I didn't got fired or laid off from three jobs in
Right.
1 year during COVID, and I was just trying to find my footing. I was like, what do I want to do? I was like, maybe I should do a short-term rental thing, and I tried it and it didn't work, and nobody wanted to work with me, and so I gave up, and it was a whole spiel. But it took me a year and a half to 2 years before I bought my first one. I got a steady job. I was like, all right, 6 months in a steady job. I'm like, I gotta buy a short-term rental, and I bought a short-term rental, and then I met my business partner, and then things spiral. Once you take action, people like working with other action takers. So that's kind of what would happen to me.
When you started running your own Airbnbs, when did you decide to like buy another portfolio? I mean, obviously that's the quickest way to scale as adding more properties. You've been owning businesses since you're 14, so that isn't that crazy that you would go into a business, but you just realize like, hey, I'm at 4 right now, 5 right now. I want to now double, triple, and then you saw coming that bought it. That's a big
Yeah.
deal to me. I mean, you said analysis paralysis, but that's a big deal by a business like that.
Yeah, well, in that case, of course, I made the mistake once about analysis paralysis. And the moment I started going and the ball was running, I was like, I'm not making that mistake again. So
Got
what
it.
happened was I realized that there's two types of money, right? There's fast money and there's slow money. What does that mean? Like buying a short-term rental property is like slow money. What I mean by that is like eventually, once I put my money in and I had equity in there, I had $175,000 worth of equity for a property that was making me $1,500 per month. When I sold that property, that same money was able to buy me a management company or afford me a management company that made me way more money. It made me $1,000 per property, and I had 15 of them. So, or 800 to 1,000 or something. But it paints the picture that, business is people talk about, buying real estate, which is great. But I think the best quote I've ever heard was from a multi-millionaire was, hey, I make my money in business. I keep my money in real estate. And I think it was a simple quote, but it kind of foreshadowed the thing where it's buying real estate, like, you trap a lot of money into it, and then you're making like $100 a month on long-term rental, versus you take that same money and you do an active form of fast money. For example, having a business, owning a business. So I realized I need to go into owning a business. So I need to help manage other people's properties because I had my own. And so I was looking for people to manage properties for, and somebody came across with a deal to buy a management company. I had no idea how to take down a management company of 15 properties. No idea. But guess what? I was going to figure it out. No analysis paralysis, because I made that mistake before. And that's exactly what I did. I said, you know what? I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to do my best with all the information I have now. Granted, it was a little bit of a bumpy road in the beginning. It was a little bit of a shit show. But overall, at the end of the day, I'm so glad I did it because it propelled me to allow me to buy the second and third management company and allow me to grow my portfolio to where it is today. So that's kind of where I'm at.
And so when you're telling people now, like when you're training individuals or coaching them, like what are you telling them? Are you telling them the same advice, like don't have analysis paralysis, or is that just something that works for you, or is that something that you? I feel like with me, like there's the quote like ignorance is bliss, and there's been several times where like I didn't know any better, so I just did it. So there is some truth to that. But when you're now coaching individuals, or you're giving, in your training, are you giving them the same kind of advice, or what are you telling them maybe differently than what you do yourself?
Yeah, I mean it's always a balance, right? So there's never like, just be negligent and just buy anything just because you think like, just be like out of this world. But for the people that are like, well, it's going to be a 20% return versus a 25% return if I'm conservative enough. I'm like, fuck that. Like, just can I swear on here?
Of
Just
course.
just take the reins and, whatever, 25%. Like, there's times where I've analyzed, like, if somebody analyzed that deal, they'd be like, well, you're going to make your money back in 3 years. Why would you take that deal? And it's like, it's not about that. I was so confident I was going to grow that inventory. I paid off the deal in 1 year. So, as a matter of fact, I did that 3 times as fast. And so, you never know. And so it's like, I think there is the way I teach my mentees and my community members is like really focus on like getting the fundamentals correct. So like worst case scenario, it's not bad, but in the best case scenario, the upside's higher, right? You're always going to take a risk. There's always a calculated risk, and you got to take that bet on yourself sometimes. And sometimes the numbers can't support what you can do. For example, I bought my first property I bought was supposed to they were making $30,000 a year. And I looked at the property and I was like, that property's going to do way more. Look at the comps. The comps were saying maybe like 45, 50. I did 60 that year. So sometimes you just got to believe in yourself a little bit, and take that
That's huge.
upside risk because you're good at what you do.
Yeah, that's huge. And they talk about real estate, they always say like location, location, location. Is that this? And I know with you, you've done a really great job of like really owning your area. Is that the same advice in property management side? 'Cause I also see like we talked about Avance, they're around the country. There's a lot of these different, companies that are around the country, but at the same time, everyone talks about local and, owning your market. Is that something that you contributed to that first property you bought? Is that in the same market you're in right now? And you just kept growing from there? Like you knew that this is where you wanted to keep your flagship and grow?
Yeah, my first property was in the Smoky Mountains of Tennessee. And then when I bought
Oh, I
my
didn't know
four
that.
additional ones in Joshua Tree, I was like, there's no reason to keep the Tennessee one. It's hard to focus on multiple, at least from my experience, but there's many ways to skin a cat. There's a lot of people that do things differently and it works. Avance does his own thing. That's their model. But what I've seen is the most success is people that focus within a region at least and or a specific market, because then you have more control over like an understanding over that market as a whole, so you become a lot better of a manager in that market. You see what I mean?
Yeah, I remember talking to you at one of the conferences, and you're talking about how your cleaners, when you bought the new properties, that you're able to manage more properties, and and it makes sense. Like even same with me, if I already have a route and I add more properties on a route, I already have someone for that property for those routes, so it just makes it more efficient. And
Exactly.
I'm sure that's the same now. You add more properties in an area that you already have cleaners and maintenance guy for. You're not really changing much because it's already in your process.
It's the 100% the same way as we were talking about when you were on my podcast. Like you talked about routes, right? And so same thing. Like if I were to add an additional property in Joshua Tree, it's gonna be so much easier. I'd rather take $100,000 a year property in Joshua Tree than a $500,000 a year property in another market, because the amount of time and energy I have to spend to actually get that property up in another market is gonna be very tough, right? Like I have to learn a new market. And so that takes away from what I'm doing in Joshua Tree. So selectively, I'm making those advancements.
No, that's a great point. And then when you're talking to people about that are looking to scale their business, are you giving them I mean, obviously the best and fastest way is probably buying another company out there. So are you giving them different, tidbits and advice on how to look for those? Or are you also just telling them to go after the owners? Because you seem like you're like a mix. I'm sure people come to you and say, here's my property. Can you help me? But also you're buying old property management companies. Both are good ways, right? I mean, is there
Yeah.
one better than the other?
At the end of the day, it's like a cost benefit analysis, right? Can I get this amount of properties in this market myself, or is it worth paying for that? And what is that time that it would take for me to get those properties? So if it takes me 3 years to get those properties, but I can pay for it and get it a lot faster and pay back my loan, then it might make more sense to buy. But if it's, the other way around. So it's like, for example, if it's a property management company within your own market, you'd be like, well, can I get this faster, But also the other side of things is like, if you're just starting out and you have no brand and you have nothing, like buying a management company is fantastic, because, or if you have a few properties, like 1 to 5, you really don't have that much of a portfolio. So, or if you're going to a new market, like in a new area, you get to inherit all the employees, all the systems and processes in that market, and get to learn that market faster because you already have employees there. It might make more sense, So it's strategic. It depends on the situation. But at the end of the day, I found that getting the brand right away, getting the resources right away, getting the employees right away saves a lot of time in most cases.
When you're buying a property in a market that you already have the resources, or is that in your negotiation? Because you're not really needing to take on their maintenance and cleaners. So are you putting that in your negotiations, or still when you're doing a deal like that, is that kind of you're paying for that regardless? It's just you might just have your own team, so you don't need them, or is that something you can negotiate? Because I feel like
Yeah.
in my perspective, yeah. Can you talk? Yeah. So you
Oh
just
yeah.
say,
I
hey, I
was
don't want to pay this. Sorry.
Go for it. Go for it.
Yeah, I was just saying, like, because if yeah, you're right. If you already have all those pieces in place, why would you pay someone else, for something that you're not even using? So are you able to negotiate and say, hey, I don't need that, so you get a discount?
Not so much, because usually it depends on how big the company is, but usually you're paying for all, because it's the market value of the company and it comes off of the contracts. So the
True.
contracts are the best asset that you're paying for. It's not really the resource and all that. That comes with it, and there's value to that. But at the same time, like there's gonna be another person that's gonna be paying for that because they find value in it. So for example, like, and people analyze homes, right? They're like, well, this home is only going to make me 100 grand a year, and with my mortgage and all my expenses, I'm going to break even. It makes no sense for me. Versus somebody can look at that and be like, well, it breaking even makes sense for me because I don't care about making money. This serves as a family home. There's value to that. Just because somebody sees value to something versus somebody doesn't, or cost segregation. Somebody recognizes cost segregation as a benefit and adds that as a part of their ROI, and some person doesn't. And so if like people are going to look at deals differently and they're going to find what's valuable for them, but at the end of the day, the contracts are more important than they are like the resources and all that. So like you're kind of getting it as part of a deal, and you got to pay for the management company value for that, so.
That makes sense. And so when people are reaching out to you for getting help in the industry, what are they mainly asking you? Like, what the common theme that people are saying, raising their hand, saying, "Patrick, I need your help. This is what I'm looking at." Like, where are they stuck at, and what are some things some tidbits you can give some people that they are in the same position, a next step?
Yeah. I think there's a lot of like creative deal structure. I think that's like a big part. Like, how do I structure this deal? How do I creatively merge? How do I position this in a way where I get benefit and this other partner gets benefit? And like just thinking about like deal structure, I think it's a really common one. There's some people that talk about valuation, a lot of valuation questions, like how do I value a management company? And then just like how do I transition? How do I make this work within my existing systems and that kind of thing? So I think valuation wise, just so people know, like usually it's between 1 to 1.5x of the management revenue. So if it's making $100,000 a year, it's 25% contract. You're making $25,000 a year. That contract is worth around 25,000 to around 37,500. So that's an example. But if that's just like for smaller companies. Now, if you're a bigger company, like let's say 40 plus units, or like you're like $300,000 EBITDA, then EBITDA basically means like net, like what's coming into your pocket, right? So the earnings that you get. So like, for example, like if I'm the EBITDA on my management company is five, or let's say 200,000, then you're probably going to get more of like a 3x an EBITDA, right? So 600,000 is the value of your company. The higher EBITDA that you have, the more earnings you make, the higher the valuations go. Because once you get over $1 million, that's really when the family offices start looking, the hedge funds start looking. Like that's usually when you start getting to like the 5, 6, 7x times EBITDA, right? And so that's like where people want to head towards. So that's kind of the structure of that. Now people are like, well, how do you structure deals? It so depends on where you're at. But I always like to do, for me, I always tell people, hey, always do an earnout component because it's the most safe, because you're buying contracts. If they're month to month and they all leave tomorrow, like you're screwed. So if it's year to year, it's still like people can leave. People can just get, like how strong are the contracts? What are people, like you got to holistically look at it, like how strong are the contracts? How easy is it for people to get out? How valuable is the company in terms of branding and all that kind of stuff? But I like to do like around like half upfront or some like commitment upfront, and then an earnout component. That earnout component could be like let's say 30-70 split until I get my money back, and then it's 50, or 100-0, right? Or whatever. Or you could do a like, hey, if I make this much money, I'll pay this much of the second half of the payment. I'll pay 100 grand up front and 100 grand in the back end, but I'll only give you the 100,000 if I get the same amount as you got in terms of gross revenue. And if I don't, then I pay you less because that means contracts left and that kind of thing. So you can kind of like negotiate that,
No, absolutely. I had no idea how much was actually in all the, like, you just blew my mind with all that. So if someone's in a position right now where they are thinking about buying or selling or have one of those questions that you just kind of talked about, they want to reach out to you. How would they reach out to you? How do they get into your network of maybe getting you to mentor them or ask some questions?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can always reach me on Instagram. It's Patryk, Patryk _SWI. You'll be able to find me as Patryk Swietek on Instagram. Is probably the best way. Now, if you want to join, if you're like interested in selling and you want to join my Facebook group, I have a Facebook group called Buy and Sell STR Management Companies. It's super awesome. Like people post deals on there. So if you want to buy a deal, like I think one deal just got posted like a day ago. So it's like people are reaching out and it's like in flocks. So it's like if you want to start like analyzing deals and doing that kind of thing, then like do that. And obviously ask me questions if you have any questions about how to find deals. That's another popular question, or things of that nature. I have a lot of content on this, so I'd be happy to share that with you.
Well, that's awesome. Well, Patrick, I appreciate your time and all the information you just provided to the audience and people who are going to be listening to this. And I'm sure that they're going to have some questions and are going to be reaching out. But again, thank you for your information, and I love for that you're on Cam Monkey podcast show, and have a great rest of your day.